Breaking news here on NFL Live as we go right to Adam Schefter. What's the latest, Adam?
All right, Laura, Jonathan Taylor was not traded by the 4 o'clock Eastern deadline today. And not only was he not traded, but the Colts have left him on the physically unable to perform. In the next window to trade him will be before the NFL's cut down day or the trade deadline on Halloween, October 31st. That's the next window to trade him. If the Colts can't get a trade worked out by then, the next window would be in the offseason when they would just put the franchise tag on him and hope to trade him then. In the interim, I think Indianapolis would like to try to win back his respect, support, and love and keep him in Indianapolis, but that's something that Jonathan Taylor has been adamantly opposed to throughout the summer, and so there are some fences to mend, if that's even possible, while he's out for at least the first 4 games of the season with no trade materializing today.
Yeah, Adam, it feels like mending that relationship is going to be difficult. We welcome you into NFL Live now. Of course, Adam with us all show long. Happy to be back with everybody. We got Dan Orlovsky
Welcome
here.
back.
Oh, well, I love it. Listen, what a way to come back in. Some breaking news, of course. Marcus Spears and Mina Kimes. And let's dive right into this, Dan. I mean, do you think, as Adam's talking about potentially the mending of a relationship with Jonathan Taylor and the Colts with everything that's happened, any way we see him back on the field with them?
I don't think we see him on the field till something gets resolved, either financially.
But also, that Jim Irsay statement that he made about Jonathan Taylor, I think is going to stick in this young man's mind, especially at the height of what he meant to this football team. It'll be a continuous issue. I think Jonathan Taylor will play elsewhere at some point in his career in the near future.
Yeah. This year, I think, to Marcus's point, if he is not traded, it's in the interest of both sides to make it work. The Colts, because they don't want drama. The most important thing for this team this season is making Anthony Richardson more comfortable. Frankly, it's why I thought they should have given Jonathan Taylor a contract, because they have the 6th most cap space in the NFL this year, the 5th most cap space next year, over $60 million. They are the type of team that can afford to make these sorts of decisions because there aren't a lot of mouths to feed on that roster right now, and their goals are different from other teams in terms of orienting this thing around Anthony Richardson. But from Taylor's perspective, he's going to have to play, guys. Like, you know, at some point he has to accrue enough games for this season to count so that he can be a free agent next year. I think he would like to be traded, and perhaps the Colts are still going to explore that, as Adam alluded to. But it is quite possible we see Jonathan Taylor on this team at some point if that doesn't happen. And I think both sides need to find a way to make that work if it does.
The Colts never were offered exactly what they wanted. They didn't believe there was fair value out there. And obviously Jonathan Taylor, as long as he, as in Indianapolis, is going to claim that his ankle is bothering him, that he's not right, that he's not ready to play physically, and so he will miss at least the first 4 games of the season. The next window to potentially trade him, if they can't somehow bridge their differences, would be before the NFL's October 31st Halloween trade deadline. And if they can't get something done there, then maybe they franchise him after the year and try to trade him then. But something's going to have to give here in Indianapolis with a disgruntled running back and a team that would like to try to find a way to keep him, but hasn't been able to do it so far and couldn't consummate a trade by today's self-imposed deadline.
Adam, I want to follow up on one thing. We wouldn't see Jonathan Taylor just traded like tomorrow, right? Even if he's still on PUP, could he?
Well, he could still be traded tomorrow, Laura, but here's the deal. It would be difficult and challenging for another team to trade for a player that obviously cannot play in the first 4 games of the season. So it's hard to imagine that a trade is going to happen here until he's off the PUP list and could show that maybe he's healthy or a team has a need at the running back position, right? Right now, we know Miami and others were inquiring about Jonathan Taylor, but we may see a contending team lose a running back early in the season, and the first target that people are going to think of now is Jonathan Taylor, because the Colts obviously have been willing to listen, but they have not been offered what they believe to be fair value, and so they've held on to Jonathan Taylor with this trade window closing and another trade window opening, I would think, in October, before the October 31st trade deadline.
Shefty, real quick, if week 1 happens and one of those teams loses a back and they call the Colts and Jonathan Taylor's on PUP, can that team trade and then immediately take him off PUP, or he's on PUP for 4 weeks no matter what team and organization he's a part of?
Jonathan Taylor is out for the first 4 games of the season. There could be another team that trades for him after 1 week, Dan, but they would have to wait 3 weeks for his services. They would be ramping him back up, getting him acclimated to the offense and whatnot. But Jonathan Taylor will not play a game until October.
Yeah, I don't know, Dan, though.
If then.
So the thing that makes me really think here, though, is if a contending team does have, unfortunately, a player go down, maybe they even say, let's just get him in the building.
Yeah, they would do it.
Right.
Long season.
Yeah.
If you're one of those elite teams and you're, Super Bowl contending team and your starting tailback goes down in those first couple weeks, Jonathan Taylor is by far the best option that we know of right now, given kind of what's happening with the cuts today. I think it's interesting that teams had conversations to trade for him. Indy said whatever was being offered isn't enough. But then Indy right now still sits there and says that they don't want to pay him to a certain value that he's been asking.
So at some point, my guess would be that in week 5 or 6, Jonathan Taylor is going to say, I'm okay to play. And then maybe, mysteriously, his hamstring will act up, his shoulder will be sore. He's not going to get, the Colts are not going to get the Jonathan Taylor they want as long as he's in Indianapolis. But yes, he has to be activated by the 6th game this year to have this season count and to not have the contract toll. And we're getting ahead of ourselves here, right? But we can begin to look down the road and see where this situation is going. And as we said earlier, it's not going to just be that Jonathan Taylor just shows up on the field. Either they're going to figure out a long-term contract extension that, by the way, Jonathan Taylor has not been open to doing so far in Indianapolis because he doesn't want to be there. That's been in the past. Or they're going to find a trade partner. So the bottom line is it's a mess. It's a tricky, sticky, unwelcome situation for everybody involved. Nobody wants this, but here's what we now have, and we'll see how it plays out here in the weeks to come.
Mina, trying to sift through this is like trying to change a newborn diaper. But so as we're thinking about what's instructive, though, is the fact that he, to Adam's point there, to reach free agency, is going to have to play a little bit, right? So what's your reaction?
Be active.
Be active, excuse me. That's a good clarification.
Be active. Yeah, no. As much as I am dreading learning how to change diapers, I also am equally dreading or confused by this situation. I think, Adam, you hit the nail on the head when you called it a mess because it's so nebulous, I guess. The injury aspect, as Adam laid out there, is what makes this hard to project.
What's amazing here is how rapidly this relationship has deteriorated. It went from, in the offseason, the Colts wanting to re-sign Jonathan Taylor and him wanting to stay, to where somewhere along the way, something changed. I don't know whether it was the fact that he was on that call with other running backs or Jim Irsay inciting him with the comments that he made publicly about Jonathan Taylor and the running back position, but somewhere this relationship this summer went south. And it seems like it's irreparably broken right now, leaving us with a mess like Jack's diaper, Laura. That's essentially what we're talking about at this point in time. And yes, Jonathan Taylor could be activated later this season. He would have to do so by the 6th game. But we've seen players before. I've seen it. Players on franchise tags, they report later, and all of a sudden, like I said, their hamstring sore, their shoulder sore. They're not going to get full effort from Jonathan Taylor. And it's a situation that somehow is still going to have to be worked over. But the bottom line today, what we know is they didn't trade him. He's missing the first 4 games. There's no end in sight to the drama. And there's a lot left to figure out here for both sides about how they're going to proceed going forward.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you alluded to it, Shefty. It just has become so personal and so convoluted with, I think, between him and obviously Irsay and management and ownership. And when you get to that point, like Jonathan Taylor mindset is like, we're not getting the respect anyway. So why would I not go somewhere else and play for a team? At least I want to be there. He doesn't want to be in. I thought he would have to increase his value by playing because he had to play, and just a byproduct of him playing well would overall turn his situation better for another team that was going to come along and trade for him. But in this particular situation, like, Jonathan Taylor has no incentive to play for the Colts, but outside of him just having to be in the building. And having to be in the building, last time I checked, don't motivate you to play football at a very high level, to your point, Shefty.
I mean, it just feels like it's going to be such an awkward saga to continue to watch.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.